Besides the camera and the lens, the tripod is probably the third most important piece of equipment in any photographer's toolkit. Especially for landscape photography, it's the one piece of all of the other ancillary equipment that you're interacting with the most. So it can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been testing out this tripod. This is the Explorer Ascent tripod. And Explorer did not sponsor me to make this video, but this video does have a sponsor, and that's the fine folks over at Pro Camera Hawaii. Is it technically a sponsored video if they just kind of provided the tripod for the test? I don't know. We'll see. If you're ever on the islands and you're in need of a specific piece of equipment, head over to IAEA to check them out. Chances are they'll probably have it, and they might also hit you up with some amazing deals as well. Now, Tony actually let me borrow this tripod for a couple of weeks, and I've been testing it out, putting it through its paces, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of my thoughts on it. Just like other things in life, size matters. And coming in of just under 2 feet when it's all folded up, the Explorer Ascent tripod comes in at a pretty decent size. Perfect to fit in a carry-on suitcase. I took it to the Big Island to actually shoot some lava, and it did very well and packed very well in the suitcase. But how much extension can we get when we spread out the legs? Fully extended, this tripod definitely packs a lot of punch. Remember, guys, I'm a short little 5'4" Asian man. So this tripod is going to look ginormous when compared to me. Fully extended, the tripod itself goes to 4 feet and maybe 4.75 feet. And add the ball head on top of that, and that's, you know, gets you to about 5 feet. Perfect size for somebody like me. Some taller shooters may want something that comes up a little bit higher, but I find for landscape photography, a lot of times you're trying to shoot close to the ground. I definitely feel like this tripod has a lot packing in a small package. Oh my God, the dirty jokes are just gonna continue to keep rolling in this video. The reason why I emphasize size so much is because my current setup is a little bit funky. If we compare it to my main travel tripod, this is the iFootage TC5. However, as you can tell, it does not get as tall, and this is without the center column raise. If I were to raise the center column, then I'm able to get to a similar working height. But the problem every time you raise a center column is now your setup becomes top heavy. And if you're shooting in wind or, you know, some crazy conditions, or you're rushing around and you're not really careful, and this thing is unbalanced, it's just gonna tip over just like that. And what's even more impressive about this tripod is that if we fold both of them up, we can get to a very, very similar sized package. The fact that this tripod can pack up this small and also extend to a height that is really good makes this tripod really appealing, especially to me. Now, when I'm not traveling, I usually go with another different tripod from iFootage, which is this one, the TC7. And this one is, you know, the Thomas Heaton tripod. You can get up nice and tall, which is why I usually tend to use it when I'm here on Oahu and I'm shooting from home, because as nice as tall as this tripod can get, you saw when it was folded up, it still has a pretty sized package. While this one can get me 90% there, while the Explorer can get me almost to the same height, but fold up smaller. Granted, there is a little bit of a height difference. We're also not on the most uneven ground, but if it can get me mostly there, that's a pretty decently sized deal. The thing that's helping the Explorer is the fact that this tripod is 4 sections instead of this tripod's 3 sections, meaning the sections can be smaller and can actually extend out a little bit further, therefore giving us that nice working height and also giving us a nice small package to travel with. So these are my two tripods that I've kind of balanced myself between. This one is like perfectly positioned right in the middle. And when it comes to size, this one definitely wins in that comparison. But size is not the only thing that matters when it comes to tripods. Another thing that you have to consider is weight as well. When it comes to weight, you want something that's good enough to give you the desired effect to stabilize everything, keep everything nice and stable. But at the same time, you want it to be light enough to prevent you from getting fatigued when you're moving it around. That, again, sounded really, really weird. I can't talk about tripods without making these half dirty jokes. But anyways, the Ascent comes in at a pretty decent working weight of 3.7 pounds. When compared to the other tripods, like the TC5, this one comes in about 3 pounds without the center column. So obviously, the smaller, the shorter the tripod is, the lighter the weight is going to be. And it holds true with when it's compared to the TC7. The taller, bigger tripod with more material is going to weigh heavier. This one comes in at about 4 pounds, so maybe a few ounces a little bit heavier than the Explorer Ascent. But size and weight aren't the only things that matter in life, and when it comes to tripods, they matter a lot, but it's not the only thing that we need to look at. What about stability? The main purpose of a tripod is to keep everything stable, and the Explorer Ascent actually does a really good job at that as well. What gives a tripod nice stability is the girth that it has on the legs. And the Explorer Ascent comes in with the girthiest legs out of all of these guys, the thickest legs out of all of these tripods, coming in at 32 millimeters up here when compared to 30 on these skinnier tripods. So the fact that this tripod is, has a little bit wider of a diameter when it comes to the legs means that it's going to be more stable. And I didn't do a whole lot of testing in extreme environments. The most I did was I took it to Sandy's one morning where I was getting hacked by waves coming in from the side. Not hacked, but little splashes here and there, and the waves are definitely coming in from underneath, trying to undercut the tripod, and this thing stayed perfectly still and did a good job against all of those waves. And this is just total personal preference, but I prefer tripods that have these flip locks or lever locks instead of these usual twist locks, which is why I've always bought iFootage up until this point. I've had issues with twist locks like this in the past where I'm rushing to set things up. I kind of extend the tripod halfway and I don't fully tighten down the leg. And let's say I extend all 3 tripod legs out, and then I go to smash the tripod down into the sand to really try and get that stability down, and these legs start sliding in, and I have no idea which leg is loose, and it just frustrates me when that happens. You don't have the same issue with lever locks because as soon as you lock the leg down, you know that everything is nice and stable. Now, when I was using this for the past 2 weeks that I just had to take the extra minute or the extra mental effort to really make sure if I'm going to tighten the leg to tighten them down fully. But that kind of causes or incurs a different issue all on its own, which is the rubber casing covering all of these leg locks. Over time and constant turning and constant really cinching down rubber twist locks means that sometimes the glue or the adhesive that adheres that rubber to the lock itself can come loose, and basically what will happen over time is you'll just be going down to tighten the lock, but you'll notice that only the rubber is spinning and the lock is not actually locking, which means more issues where you're pushing the tripod down or you're putting it on the ground and then the legs are folding up on themselves. I've had that issue. It's well documented by a lot of seascape photographers like Nick Page on YouTube, so that is a concern. But I did reach out to the people at Explorer, and they have told me that they have spare parts of everything, that all the parts of the tripod, so if anything ever goes bad, you can always order replacement parts. You always want to invest in a tripod company that has the customer support and the ability to get you all the necessary parts that you need. And yeah, Explorer is a relatively new brand. I haven't seen a whole lot of videos made on them in particular, but they're under the parent company of Nisi. And Nisi is one of the companies that makes nice, feel the hassle to clean. Twist locks are much more easier to clean. You just unscrew everything, clean everything out, clean out all the plastic, and then you're good to go. And it fits together much more easily. This one you need at least two specific types of tools, the Allen key and then a key for the screw that connects on this side. Whenever I have to clean a tripod, I'm like, oh, let me get my whole setup, where something like this does make the cleaning process much more simpler. I'm much more of a fan of this flicking action than I am a fan of this twisting action, but that's just personal preference. Tell me you have too much tripods without telling me you have too much tripods. So now let's talk about heads. Explorer gives us a very, very nice offering. This is the EX-XL, the biggest ball head of their offering. If you're into the traditional ball head type of structure, this thing has no complaints, very smooth motion. I've already gotten it wet with a little bit of salt water, and usually that fluid motion and the fluidity of the movements is kind of impacted, but it hasn't had any issues. The panning has some nice weight to it, so I wouldn't have too much of an issue doing, panning side to side, nice and stable. The twist lock, the twist clamp, clamps down on the tripod plates or the L bracket nice and tight. It's not going to be coming off anytime soon, so there's no complaints when it comes to the ball head. The only problem is I kind of moved away from these traditional ball heads for a couple of reasons. Number one, I started doing a lot of video, so that's where something like the more traditional fluid head, like this Komodo K5, comes into play, because now I have fluid motion to go up and down as well as pan from side to side. So having that fluid motion to make those nice fluid movements are really helpful when it comes to video. And the other thing that I also kind of got into a lot is panoramic photography and doing a lot of panoramas. And this is the current ball head that I'm using now. This is the Acrotech long lens head, but the functionality is the same. You can either pan from side to side or you can tilt up and down. In order to really maximize and utilize these heads to their maximum potential, you really need some sort of leveling base like I have here. Like this tripod has a bowl mount, and this tripod has one of the kind of cheaper alternatives where there's a leveling mechanism in there. With this type of ball head, you can tilt from side to side if you're just taking a single exposure or something like that to kind of level out the camera. But the moment that you want to pan and do like a horizontal panorama, like let's say you're set up like this, right? You have the tripod kind of on an uneven leveling surface, but you compensate it by leveling out just the camera itself. The moment you go to pan, then there goes your horizon line. And I'll show you guys on video to give you guys a better idea. So right now, as you can see, the horizon is nice and straight. Because my tripod base is not straight, there goes my horizon as soon as I start panning in the opposite direction. It's just going all funky wonky. And in order to really make sure that this tripod is perfectly level, it does have a bubble level over here, by the way, but in order to really make sure that it's level, you kind of have to, on the table it's easy because the table is level, but in reality, in landscape photography, Mother Nature is not giving us level places to set up the camera. So you're gonna extend one leg a little bit taller than the other and make sure this leg is a little bit shorter. It's just a harder process. When compared to something like the iFootage, the TC7, you could be setting your tripod up at a weird angle like this, But because it has a leveling base that moves independently from the tripod, you can still get your tripod level because there's a bubble level inside here. And now when you go to pan or you go to do your panorama, you've got you have a more accurate level horizon that you can work with that works a lot better for making panoramics. And the same thing goes for video. What I could also do is buy something like this. iFootage offers, kind of like a third-party leveling base that goes pretty much on top of the base of your tripod. The only problem is, because I've had experience with this one, and because I shoot around saltwater so much, the movement of the leveling just gets so hard over time because of all the saltwater I expose it to and whatever, while kind of like having a native leveling base like this one, like the TC7, even though I've thrown it in saltwater, the functionality is still there. This one, it works, but you're fighting it constantly. So I'm very hesitant to go into using like third-party leveling bases. I want it to be built into the tripod itself. But of course, if you're the traditional ball head shooter, have no reservations with the setup that they offer. Do you have a foot fetish? Because I have a foot fetish when it comes to tripods, though, not when it comes to people. When it comes to feet, I'm happy to report that the Explorer Ascent tripod has these unscrewable feet that you can replace these kind of rubber feet with your own spiked feet, or I think they have an option to purchase spiked feet as well. That's really helpful for seascapes when you're trying to jam in your legs nice and deep into the into the sand. The iFootage ones also come with kind of these rubberized feet, but they have a built-in screw. But then when you untwist it, the screw is kind of small and stubby looking. So I've always kind of wanted to have a little bit bigger of a spike. My God, everything that's coming out of my mouth. I always kind of wanted to have a bigger spike on my feet. And I'm happy to say that, if you're into the foot fetish kind of stuff when it comes to tripods, this one definitely has the flexibility to handle that. So the last point I want to make is about price. How much is this Explorer Ascent tripod going to run you? Let's see, let's take a look at my notes here. The tripod itself is $589, so almost $600 for a nice trio of legs, a nice set of legs. And that's a pretty fair price. It's a little bit more on the expensive side, but it's not as expensive as some other brands out there like Really Right Stuff that go into like the thousands of dollars. At least the tripod legs themselves keep it under $1,000. The ball head, the EXXL, is going to cost you, let's see here, $179, which is also not cheap, but also not the most expensive ball head in the world. So in total, it comes out to almost a little over $750, $768 to be exact, which is not a pretty penny. It's not the cheapest tripod out there, but you get what you pay for. You get a nice stable tripod, you get a nice stable tripod head as well. When we compare it to the other options, something like the TC5 is going to be a little bit cheaper. It's going to run you about $350, and what's even better is that you get, an even more robust and stable fluid head. Depends on what you do. If you do a lot of long lens stuff, if you do a lot of video stuff, it might be worth investing in this fluid head. That's going to put you back only about 150 bucks. However, it does kind of even out the price when we compare it to the TC7 and this setup that we have here. So the tripod legs on the TC7 are going to cost you the cheapest out of the bunch, actually, $314. But what you're paying for with this setup is the long lens head. This Acrotech head is going to run you $400. So this thing is not a cheap penny, but the fact that it kind of does what a fluid head does, but it's more lightweight is the reason why I bought it. So I kind of paid more money to have something a little bit lighter. All right, so enough about specs. Let's talk about how this tripod performed in real life. And like I said earlier, I took it to Sandy's, which is probably one of the toughest places to shoot sea skates because you have all this water kind of crashing around you. The tripod did very, very well. You know, stuffing the tripod legs into the sand like I always do. When the waves hit the tripod, there was no movement, no vibration at all, which is phenomenal. One of the good things about this tripod is because it can get so tall, you can really extend this tripod up and really stuff those legs into the sand without having to worry that your tripod is going to be at a lower level, that you're going to be worried about it getting splashed. And that's fairly important when it comes to sea skates, because you're not always going to be shooting with the feet of the tripod on the flat ground. Sometimes you have to stick the tripod legs in mud, in sand, in water, and you want to make sure that the tripod has enough height to get you your whole setup above whatever harmful surface you're shooting above. I also took this tripod hiking, just took it up like a quick hike, and you know, of course, we're walking around with this tripod strapped to the bag, and it did pretty well, considering that it weighs kind of similar to my other setups. I didn't really notice that it was any heavier or any lighter in particular. With time-lapse and long exposure photography, the fact that this thing can stay stable in water in crashing waves means that if there's no crashing waves and nothing to impede the movement and stuff, that it does perfectly fine. I shot fireworks with this guy, it did well. Did a couple time lapses with it, no movement whatsoever. When it comes to time lapses and stuff like that. So it can definitely keep your camera still over a long period of time. All right, so who is this tripod for? This tripod is probably the best for, you know, semi-professional or professional landscape photographers where stability matters. You're shooting in harsh environments where the wind is blowing, you have saltwater waves, you know, crashing up against you. You need something that is going to handle those elements, and this tripod will do a phenomenal job at that. If you also are doing a lot of landscape photography traveling, this tripod is perfect. It gets small enough, has a small enough package to fit inside of your suitcases, while also getting to a pretty decent working height. If you're looking to upgrade your tripod, like let's say you're coming from, you know, the cheap beginner travel tripods, this is going to be much more stable than those. And it's also going to save you a few dollars if you don't want to upgrade to like those $1,000 tripods, like the Really Right Stuff. Considering this tripod is still pretty pricey, but it's also cheaper than the most expensive stuff out there. So keep that in mind. Who is this tripod not for? I would say if you're kind of like a long distance hiker and you're not really that serious about your photography, don't get this tripod. There are more lighter weight options within like the 3-pound range that can, there's more lightweight options out there, like the Peak Design tripod that I'm filming on now. But if you're looking for the most lightweight tripod out there to travel with or to hike with or whatever, this is not the tripod for you. Also, I wouldn't get this tripod if you do a lot of photography like what I do. If you do a lot of video, you should already know that you need a tripod head or a tripod with a leveling base so that you can get your camera nice and level. If you do a lot of panoramics like I do, you need something with a leveling base as well to make sure your horizon is stable. And right now, Explorer doesn't have that option. The system is built there. It seems like the system is built around this kind of removable base plate, so I don't see an issue on why they couldn't just kind of add something in, like make a spare part, because they already make these base plates with the center column. So if you just make a base plate, Explorer, to put inside there so that I could use one of these panoramic heads or these fluid heads on top of it, I'd probably buy the tripod in a heartbeat. But because of that, I don't think I can make the jump. I just do panoramas too much. I do video too much. I just wish that I could put this head on this set of legs while also having a built-in leveling base. yeah, this tripod is just not for me. But if you're interested in getting this tripod, it is available at Pro Camera Hawaii. Not sponsored, maybe. But yeah, I think that's gonna about do it for me. But thank you again to Tony for allowing me to test this thing out. The primary purpose was for me to get feedback, and hopefully this video gave Explorer a little bit of feedback, and I'm really hoping and praying that they make something like this for this tripod, and then they can take however much money they want from me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like this tripod? Do you not like it? Are you gonna be spending some money at Pro Camera this weekend? Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure you hit that like button, comment below, and subscribe if you aren't already. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.